we were, discussing the Purdue job on Monday, and we were talking about Tyson Helton and Western Kentucky and why all the reasons that made sense, including the fact that it continues a string of hires by the Purdue football program that goes back 40 years of hiring offensive coaches. So what happens on Tuesday? They introduce a defensive coordinator as the next head football coach. But this is not just any defensive coordinator, because Ryan Walters, defensive coordinator at Illinois, has been a rising star in this industry. The former Colorado safety is 36 years old. He has very quickly moved up in the ranks to the point where I think that he was respected for, yes, his understanding and development of a defense, but also for his recruiting, also for the way he's able to communicate with these players, and for his energy, his enthusiasm, all things that were mentioned, by the way, by Purdue athletic director Mike Babinski. Great job by him, but for keeping this all buttoned up. Tom, as our preeminent Illinois expert, I know you're sad to see your beloved Ryan Walters go, but especially to a Big Ten West foe. But what do you make of the hire?
Yeah, Ryan, I'd have preferred you went to like Colorado or somewhere outside the Big Ten. Although I'm thrilled Ryan Walters got the job because he deserves it. I've been talking about him on this show for a few years. I was saying he was going to be head coach sooner rather than later, and now here we are. And yeah, it was surprising to me because, like you said, Purdue's history has always been hiring offensive-minded head coaches. I did not think they would be going the defensive coordinator route, although I think Walters was a good choice for them. And it's also ironic in that if you look at Illinois' performances on defense this year, as far as yards per play allowed, Purdue was their worst game. So they saw the Illinois defense at their worst, and they still said, you know what, that's the guy we want. And it is a very good hire. I think that Ryan Walters is an excellent coach, first and foremost. I think he's a very good recruiter, and I think that he's going to go in there and they're going to win games. Defensively, they're going to be a lot better than they have been. And Ryan Walters is not the kind of coach that I think is afraid of an offense. I think that you can expect, maybe you're not going to see like an old school kind of ground and pound kind of thing that you should be scared of with defensive coordinators when they take over. I think he understands. I mean, the offense that he was coaching with at Illinois is not an old school ground and pound that many people assume it is because Brett Bielema was in charge. It's mostly an RPO offense and a spread offense. I think you're going to see the same similar kind of stuff at Purdue that you've already been seeing. I think you're going to get some energetic recruiting. I think you're going to see improved defense. Get used to seeing your secondary players taking huge leaps forward and start getting thrown into mock drafts really quickly, because that's exactly what happened at Illinois, because he took over he was the safeties coach along with the defensive coordinator. He took over a group of defensive backs, him and Aaron Henry, who were not exactly highly recruited, highly rated, hyped up guys, and got Kirby Joseph to the NFL in one season after moving him to free safety. He's going to have 3 draft picks from his secondary this year. All of them are extremely well coached. All of them know exactly what they're doing in that defense. And that's really the kind of key of the defense. Illinois, if you look at their roster, does not have the 4- and 5-star defenders that the best defenses like Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama have. Illinois performed to a higher level than those defenses in a lot of opponent adjusted metrics. It's not just who they played, because they were so well coached and because the scheme was that effective. So I don't know how quickly it'll take. I mean, with the transfer portal, things speed up a little bit, and Purdue's defense was pretty good this year, but I would expect it to take an even larger step forward next season. I think it's a very good hire for the Boilermakers. I'm thrilled for Ryan Walters, and I think, it's going to be interesting to see where Illinois goes from here.
Yeah, I agree with Tom on that. I'm slightly a little bit less impressed with Illinois' defense relative to some of the other national powers he mentioned, but it is clear that Ryan Walters did a good job there. And importantly here, to his point, we knew that Illinois had some guys on their roster who had athleticism, but really not refined skill. And I thought Walters did a nice job to develop that DB room. They were able to play a high risk style and really were not burned all that often. I also liked what he did at Missouri. I know 2 years ago I wrote, these are the 20 names that you need to know who could become head coaches in the future. And I was surprised when Missouri parted ways with him. I thought that was a savvy hire by Brett Bielema to go and take him and put him on the staff. And I thought he did a nice job. Certainly Brett was rewarded for that. I will note, I'm curious to see who he hires as his offensive coordinator. I imagine they'll have a pretty nice salary pool because Purdue's in the Big Ten. And yeah, they're just, they're printing money at this point. their non-conference schedule next year to start is favorable and notable. So they have Fresno, then they're at Vatech, and then they host Syracuse. Right now, I think they would be favored in all three of those games, especially because Jake Haener is going to be out of eligibility. And that's important because you need to start hot, I think, for recruiting purposes. And after that, the schedule gets difficult. So you go Wisconsin, Illinois, at Iowa. They are the Big Ten West team that gets both Ohio State and Michigan in next year. So good luck with that. Ohio State comes to West Lafayette, at Nebraska, at Michigan, Minnesota at home, and they close at Northwestern. But I think their odds to make a bowl actually are going to be decent, and that would be a step down from what they did this year. But it is always difficult when you have both Michigan and Ohio State on the schedule. I think he's a good recruiter, and I'm curious to see who he will sign for that staff. Also, just as a general comment on the Purdue job, this is a job that I think you would downgrade some once the Big Ten does away with divisions, because the East is just that much tougher in terms of the quality of program you have to face at the top. So Walters will need to start hot to get that recruiting going once divisions go away.
Also, if the Big Ten does keep divisions, Purdue's probably getting bumped to the East.
So I will say that the Purdue job at this moment, you could argue, is as good as it's been in a very long time. Because as I was going through and putting together some stuff for the Ryan Walters story on CBSSports.com, I realized that this is the first time that Purdue has had back-to-back winning seasons since Joe Tiller.
Mm-hmm.
And that the 17 wins in the last two seasons is legitimately a high watermark for the 21st century of Purdue football. The roster that he is inheriting has a winning culture, for whatever that means, or at least the habit of winning more often than losing in a way that Purdue football has not had. That is a credit to Jeff Brom, yes, but also, if I'm Ryan Walters, makes the Purdue job more attractive than just considering it a nice paycheck because it's a Big Ten job, because you realize that, trying to get back to the Big Ten championship, those expectations might be unrealistic, but at least the locker room that you're inheriting hasn't won only 9 games across 4 years like the one that Jeff Brom took over. Yeah. Much, much better job than it was. And I think that that's going to be a good launching point for a very young head coach in his first gig as a head coach.